Jango Fett had spent most of his life fighting in the Mandalorian Civil War. Now, the war was seemingly over, at least the war between the Mandalorian factions. He had felt a sense of relief when Silas told him that Vizsla had perished, but seeing Kart Row's ship explode just above him told him this wasn't the end. Jango Fett had never seen a Jedi, nor even heard of them, so these new starfighters appearing had him confused. Were they the Galandranians? Surely they didn't have the technology of this magnitude, and the local government should know he would be leaving anyway. But it was apparent, these are not the Galandranians. This new threat seemed more well-trained. Today, on Star Wars Fanatic. And before I continue, if you're new to this Star Wars Fanatic channel, go on and hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Star Wars fan fictions, theories, and discussions. Also, hit the like button to show your love for what I do here and the hard work I put into each video. Now, let's get into today's story. Jango Fett and his lieutenant, Silas Scarrata, found themselves dodging the falling debris of Kart Row's fighter. They had no time to think of those aboard the ship that had just lost their lives. Good men, true Mandalorians. Jango yelled to his men to take cover as they all scattered in different directions. The snow-covered ground was dotted with debris as more fell from the sky. These new enemies were indeed well-trained, and they seemed to have an unknown edge on the true Mandalorians as they swooped down and eliminated the rest of Jango's fighters. The fighters tried strafing runs and hit as many on the ground as they could, but the true Mandalorians had hidden well enough to not get hit. This forced the fighters to land. As he watched the fighters touch down, snow was kicked up all around them, making a snowy fog, obscuring most of what was coming. He could make out figures springing from the cockpits of the fighters. They were oddly dressed for warriors. They had no armor to speak of, and only long flowing robes covering them. Jango ordered his men to open fire, but as soon as they did, the new adversaries ignited their lightsabers and deflected the shots back at them. Then Jango watched as his men fell to these unusual warriors, one by one. Then the fighting stopped. Jango dropped his rangefinder and trained it on one of the robed figures. He then pressed a button on his wrist gauntlet and a rocket shot from his jetpack. What he saw next was nothing less than disconcerting. The target raised a hand and the rocket veered off course just before hitting him and exploded in the air, as if by magic. The battlefield silenced once more. Then he heard a voice call out, "Jango Fett, you are under arrest. Come forward peacefully and we will ensure fair treatment of you and your men." Just then, he saw one of his female warriors spring to life. Her jetpack fired in a blaze and she took to the sky. Moments later, her rocket fired from above and killed two of the robed figures. Then, Jango saw something he didn't think possible. One of the fighters leaped from the ground effortlessly, igniting his lightsaber and sliced the brave Mandalorian through her midsection, cutting her in two. Astonished, Jango watched as the true Mandalorian fell to the ground in two pieces. Something came over Jango's forces in that moment, as they all charged at the same time without an order given. Jango gladly joined in the rampage. What kind of savages were these people? He didn't seem to care that his blaster's power cells had been depleted, or that the only real weapons he had were the climbing blades on his wrist gauntlets. Jango deployed the blades and charged ahead. One by one, a Jedi would try to cut him down with their own lightsabers, and one by one, his Beskar armor would prove effective in deflecting the blades, and one by one, his own climbing blades would find their targets and slice open the enemy. He was so focused on eliminating this threat that he didn't even notice his own men getting cut down. 6 Jedi in all fell to Jango Fett, either from his blades, his fists, punching, kicking, slashing their way through them, until he made his way to the leader, the Jedi he would later learn to be Master Dooku. Dooku then reached out his hand and magically lifted Jango Fett from the ground and slammed him on his back, knocking the wind out of his lungs without laying a single finger on the seasoned warrior. When Jango fell, his helmet was rocked from his head. As Dooku stood over the fallen warrior, still trying to gasp for air, Dooku reached out his hand again, knocking Jango's head into the snow so hard that he struck hard ground and he was knocked unconscious. When Jango came to, his breathing was returned to normal, but his armor had been stripped, his weapons in the hand of Dooku's apprentice Kamari Vosa, who wasn't without battle scars. The girl, no older than 18, was limping and bloody. Jango looked Dooku in the eye and taunted him. "My men did that to her, and they will do worse." But the words fell on a sour face. Dooku then put his face so close to Jango's own face that their noses almost touched. He returned the taunt. "Look around, young Fett. You have no men." Dooku then backed up to give Jango a clearer view, and there he saw every one of his true Mandalorian warriors were dead. Jango felt a tear fall to his cheek. "You have no idea what you've done. Tell me who you are so I can find you all and kill you and everything you stand for." Dooku then gave Jango a puzzling look, as if to say, "Have you never heard of the Jedi?" But he granted the captive Fett his request. "I am Master Dooku of the Jedi Order, and you are under arrest for inciting riots against the governor of Galandran." Jango then fought to break free of his binders. Dooku allowed it for a moment until Kamari returned and hit a button on a palm-held device, which sent a shockwave into Jango's body starting at his neck, rendering him unconscious one more time. When he came to this time, he was strapped to a chair and the Jedi were gone. Only a couple of guards and the governor of Galandran occupied the room with Jango. The governor then showed the palm device to Jango, as if to warn him that if he tries anything, he would be fried. When the governor spoke, "And I won't release the button when you lose consciousness." Jango sat in the chair for a solid 2 hours. When he would start to doze off, one of the guards would hit him across the top of his legs with a pike. Finally, Jango spoke. "What is this? Why am I here? Why not let me die with my true Mandalorians?" The governor laughed. "You don't deserve that honor. Almec made sure you are not held in any Mandalorian honor at all. He called you Dormond or something." Then Jango whispered under his breath, "Darmanda." Jango then bowed his head. "Almec. Okay, what are you going to do with me, if not kill me?" The governor gave a slight chuckle as his comm went off, and the voice on the other end said, "Governor, they're here." Jango sat quietly as the door slid open. He was still surprised that this backwater planet had even that much technology. Even though he was quiet, beaten, and wounded, there was still a resolve on his face. The new characters entered the room, a Pike and his guards. The governor addressed the leader. "Lone Pike, do you have the payment?" The Pike then tossed the case of credits onto the desk in front of him, then spoke. "A Mandalorian fetches quite a price as a slave, worth at least that of 3 Wookiees." Jango then knew he was being sold into slavery to the Pike Syndicate. The same Pike Syndicate that controlled the spice trade. The same Pike Syndicate that underestimated Jango's own resolve. The guards grabbed Jango forcefully and jerked him out of the seat. Lone Pike reacted. "Be careful, he cost me a lot of money, and he will make us even more money." Then the guard dragged Jango out of the room, out of the palace, and onto their shuttle. Everything had happened so fast, Jango wondered how this all came to be. One minute, his forces destroyed Death Watch and ended the war. The next minute, his true Mandalorians were all dead, and he was now a slave. But Jaster Muriel had put Jango in situations like this for his training. Jango would be just as surprised then. "How did I get here?" Jaster would then answer, "It doesn't matter how you got here. How will you get out?" It took Jango multiple attempts to escape Jaster's mock prison, but he eventually learned. Now, he just had to wait. It was all true what they said about the Pikes. These beings were ruthless. They made sure the slaves knew who was in charge. He witnessed many escape attempts, and he witnessed them all die in the attempt. It seemed the Pikes' slavery methods were unescapable, but Jango held to his resolve. For 2 years, it burned inside him brighter and brighter each day. He had to get out, but he was still patient. An opportunity would present itself. And actually, he had been such a good slave that the Pikes took him off the mines of Kessel once in a while to help with shipments aboard a transport. He was considered minimal risk. His family was dead, his troops destroyed, his home world had exiled him. he had nothing to escape to. So the Pikes believed. As Jango went through each of the cargo bays of the spice transport, he counted off the shipment's manifesto for each block. No wonder why the Pikes could afford me. He thought to himself. He always had one guard with him, and his electro collar was always present. But it had been over a year since he had been beaten or shocked. The guard and the collar had become a formality at this point, but he did wish they would at least wash it once in a while. 2 years of Jango's sweat and odor was caked on it. He just wished they would travel to a wet planet sometime so he could stand in the rain to wash some of the stench away. He wondered if the Pikes could even smell at all. If nothing else, a shower was enough of a reason to escape. The Pikes never put any of the Pike family on these transports. There would be too much hassle if the Republic commandeered it, and there was a delicate balance between the Pikes and Chancellor Valorum. Jango learned all this listening to the guards. He learned a lot about galactic politics and would pay special close attention anytime a Jedi was brought up, waiting to hear the name Master Dooku. He used to hear of him once in a while, but he had not heard anything of Dooku in about 6 standard months at this time. The proximity alarm rang as the transport jolted out of hyperspace, but it didn't seem like the usual drop and jolt. It was much rougher. It could be that this ship was much older than the previous ship Jango had served on, but he knew this feeling. It was not just a drop from hyperspace. This was blaster fire from something bigger. This may be the chance Jango was looking for to escape, if he survived. Then, another jolt. This one was much bigger, as if the ship had been going just under light speed and stopped abruptly. An ion cannon had stopped them in their tracks. And when it did, Jango's guard was smacked into a bulkhead face first. Jango had managed to grab a hold of some piping above him. When his body got used to the sudden stop, he checked his guard. The guard was dead. This was definitely the chance Jango Fett had been waiting for to escape. He felt another shake of the transport, and the sound of metal hitting metal echoed throughout the halls. Jango rushed to get the key from the dead Pike guard and unlocked his electro collar. Finally, the smell of that thing was on the floor away from Jango. He then felt the air pressure thin a bit and knew what this meant. This was not a Republic cease and impound. They were being boarded by pirates. But what kind of pirate would be stupid enough to rob the Pikes? All of this played through Jango's head, but it was really of no importance. Pirates he could deal with. They wouldn't care if he was escaping his captors as long as they didn't have other plans for him. As Jango hid from passageway to passageway, he could hear faint sounds of blasters throughout the ship. Then he heard something he thought be impossible. The sound was right in front of him, face to face, smiling. "Jango Fett! Men, we have found him!" There was Hondo Ohnaka. Jango smiled. "Hondo! What a lucky coincidence." Hondo laughed. "Nothing I do is coincidence, my friend. I was tipped off by Silas." Jango looked surprised. "Silas? I thought he died on Galandran." Hondo looked back at his men. "Boys, take care of the shipment we have procured. Jango and I have business to tend to." Hondo smiled at Jango. "Silas is alive and well. He watched the Jedi capture you and the Pikes take you away. I have been looking for you for 2 years. Jango grabbed Hondo's leathery hand. "I owe you so much, Hondo." Hondo grinned. "You owe me nothing, my boy. This shipment of spice will make us quite a profit. But I will only take you to the next planet. I have freed you, but it is up to you to get where you need to go. My service is over." Jango thanked him again and told Hondo that it was more than he deserved. The problem was, the planet below was also a slave planet. It was where his transport was headed with the spice before it was intercepted by the Weequay pirates. The difference is, this planet is only a customer of the Pikes, not a partner. They should have no idea that Jango was their slave. Hondo joins Jango in their escape pod as they make their descent to the surface of Uvo 4. Hondo had also scanned the best option for a ship for Jango, and they settle on a hangar just outside the prison area. The escape pod sets down a few kilometers away. They will have to make the rest of the journey on foot. Jango tells Hondo of his concern. If there is a worthy ship in this hangar, how will he stop the other ships from destroying him, even if he breaks the atmosphere. Hondo reassures him, "I have it all under control, my friend." But this doesn't ease Jango's mind. As they approach the hangar, it didn't look like there was much activity going on, but there were 6 ships in the hangar, all in a row, as if to say, "Take your pick, Jango Fett." Hondo's jaw slacked. "Jango, do you know what those are? Those are prototype Firespray 31 class patrol ships. I hear they are hard to fly, but if you can do it, they are top of the line." Jango smiled. "If I can fly a Mandalorian gauntlet fighter, I can fly this. But how do I get it out of there unnoticed?" Hondo chuckled. "I told you, I have it under control." Just then, the transport that Jango had been a slave on drops close to the surface and begins firing on the hangar. Hondo hurries Jango along. The diversion is enough to get him on one of the snail-shaped ships. Jango wastes no time. Hondo was right. This is not going to be an easy ship to fly, but he manages to get it off the ground with Hondo stumbling around in the back. Jango and his newly acquisitioned ship shoot out of the hangar at a speed that surprised even Jango. Just as the ship departed, the transport came in for a final strafe and destroyed the hangar, along with the other 5 prototype ships. And as quickly as the transport arrived, it disappeared. An anti-aircraft cannon shot the Pike transport into dust. As they departed the atmosphere, Jango looked to Hondo. "I'm sorry about your men aboard the transport, and your spice." Hondo laughed. "Haha, my boy, my men cleared the ship before we got to the escape pod, and they were remote flying the ship anyway. Now, the prison planet will blame the Pikes, and the Pikes will blame Uvo 4 for their loss in shipment. You and I are clear." Jango was astonished at how well that plan was executed, but he wasn't going to question it anymore. Jango docked his new ship to Hondo's disc-like pirate ship. He asked Hondo if he would like to join him, but Hondo told him that he had had enough of the Mandalorian crazies and wanted to go to his new hideout on Florum, and that if Jango ever needed anything, to look him up. For a price, of course. Hondo then gave Jango a wink and closed the hatch behind him. Jango then closed his own hatch and separated the ships. His next order of business? Getting his armor back, and he knew just where to find it. Before Jango was to go into any conflict, he had to understand his new fighter better. So, he took it through different asteroid fields, testing its speed capabilities, targeting systems, and maneuverability. He was highly impressed. The ship even had an armory, complete with weapons. It was obvious these ships were equipped for action. He missed the old gauntlet fighters, but this ship was better in most areas, as far as he could tell. It took him a little time to get used to handling the ship, but when he figured it out, he felt unstoppable. When Jango Fett reached Galandran, he was uncontested. His ship didn't resemble anything of the Mandalorian fighters that had brought him to the planet 2 standard years earlier. So, he figured they weren't on the lookout. He strafed the perimeter of the palace and cleared it easily. He landed his new weapon of war and grabbed 2 pistols from the armory, along with some riot gear. As the door to the Firespray slid down, 3 guards had exited the palace in an attempt to stop him. Jango dispatched them quickly and easily. With each wave of underdeveloped would-be guard, Jango mowed them down before they got a shot off with their primitive weaponry. One hall after another in the palace, guards were dropping until he reached the door he had last seen while being dragged out by Pike guards. Jango stood to the side of the door and pressed the button, sending the door shooting upward. A volley of blaster fire erupted from the room immediately, but Jango was safely behind the wall. When the blaster fire would stop, Jango would peek around and shoot 2 guards at a time, until the shooting stopped completely. The last time he peeked his head through the door, he saw the dead guards and the governor cowering under his desk. He pulled the governor out forcefully and slammed him backwards on the desk. Begging for his life, the governor didn't recognize his former prisoner. That is, until Jango removed his riot helmet. He got close to the governor's face. "Remember me now?" The governor nodded his head quickly and repeatedly. "Please don't kill me." Jango smiled. "You had my men killed and sold me into slavery. You will get the same fate. Since I haven't seen any more of your men try to save you, they must all be dead." Then Jango hit him over the head and knocked him out. It didn't take Jango long to locate his armor. The pompous governor had it on display as a trophy, but not only was Jango's complete set on display, so was his former mentor's, Jaster Muriel. Jango could only guess that it was pulled from his ship just before it was destroyed on the ground. The details didn't matter though. After Jango replaced the riot gear with his original armor, he took the governor to the Firespray and shackled him into the holding cell aboard the ship. Then he went back for Jaster's armor. Once aboard his shiny new ship, he set off for Zygeria. Once there, he knew all he had to do was drop the governor on the surface and the Zygerian slavers would take care of the rest. So that's exactly what he did. As Jango rose into the sky, he watched the heat signature of the governor get surrounded, then overtaken. Next on his agenda, earn enough money for provisions and supplies. Then he would check on his sister, Arla, back on Mand'alor. Jango was alone now. Space seemed darker and quieter. This was the first time he really got to mourn his comrades, and being alone wasn't always a bad thing to him. But this time, it was sad, and he felt guilty for surviving when nearly all of his true Mandalorians had died. Maybe he could find Silas, if what Hondo had told him was true. But where would he start? He had to think quickly. If he was discovered alive, the Pikes would surely try to hunt him down. That was the least of his worries, though. The Pikes would think he died on the spice transport on Uvo 4. Well, that'll do it for this chapter. I plan on releasing the last one individually. Then I will combine all the chapters into one big video. I know it's hard to try to pick through them individually through my channel, so I'm going to try to do that for you. What do you think so far? Let me know in the comments below, and we can discuss it, and what kind of theories you may have as to how it should go in the future. I do read all the comments, and I try to answer each one, so please don't hesitate. Go ahead and throw a comment out there. And if you like what I do here, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all my Jango Fett, Boba Fett, Book of Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and general Star Wars content and discussions. Also, go on and hit the like button to show your love for this video. Each like and comment helps promote my video a little more. Thank you for watching, and remember, this is the way, the only way.